What did you anticipate? I would choose him first, because I can obtain the tonnage and the reliability. Were you expecting him to come up with something amazing right out of his butt and say, look at this? No, he came up with something that everybody's interested in. My forecasts and ideas. I believe that 2024 will be a watershed year, because many of the major North American automakers have retreated from the EV world, mainly because they are paying attention to Wall Street. However, I also believe that there will be a shift, perhaps around election time, when people will start to realize who might win and that there will likely be more of a deciding factor than almost anything that is consistent with logic. Sun Yuan is one of my favorite philosophers, and he says all the time that you should attack or your enemy is not who's the enemy. Well, the enemy to the Chinese is any OEM, any ICE manufacturing OEM. Where is that enemy not? Well, they're not in electric. Those Mavaz sat there thinking, oh, we don't have to worry, we're going to have sunshine forever. And when you get people talking like that, they can't figure out what the future is going to be, and the future was not that dim reflection of the past. They did nothing, and people who sit on their hands usually get conquered. And that's what's going to happen. The Chinese are going to bring their cars over. They're going to be quite nice. Their qualities are going to be very good. So the learners are going to win the learned ed. Those people who understand the old rules, they're going to lose. The Chinese are going to show up. Their cars are going to be just like the Japanese were initially when they came into the United States. The Japanese cars were high quality. They were gas sippers. And everybody wanted to get low-cost gasoline. And so consequently, you're going to see a return of that invasion. But nobody pays attention to history. They're going to be in big trouble. When the folks at the top of the house believe that the Chinese are just going to give us some Chinese garbage, you can't possibly win. Imagine what will happen when the car arrives. Let's get started on a subject that is sure to cause ripples in the history of Tesla stock. None other than Sandy Munro, the well-known industry analyst whose forecasts have the power to cause the market to tremble like never before. In this episode, we'll examine Sai's most recent revelations that could completely change the course of Tesla's stock. From revolutionary discoveries about global supply chains to game-changing breakthroughs in battery technology, the automobile sector is about to be rocked by Sandy Munro's skills. How will the flood of Chinese cars affect the U.S. market? What effects will the Inflation Reduction Act have on the incentives for electric vehicles? And how does Sandy envision the development of battery technology going forward? So fast forward, people, you won't want to miss a second of this conversation. However, before you do anything else, be sure you click the like and subscribe buttons. This is news on Tesla stock. Let's get started immediately. Here are some important insights from Sandy Munro, who has been in the trenches working closely with suppliers and speculating about when the era of traditional vehicles will end. Initially aiming for 2030, Sandy now believes that we may hit that turning point as early as 2028. Let that sink in for a second. We're not just talking about a slight shift here. We're talking about a sizable transformation in the automotive landscape. And it gets even more electrifying. The rise of electric vehicles is poised to reshape the way we commute, travel, and interact with our environment on a global scale. Picture these bustling metropolises, illuminated by the glow of electric vehicles silently gliding through the streets. Imagine this shift isn't limited to the borders of the United States alone. Oh no, it's a global phenomenon set to reverberate across continents. Scenes untouched by the roar of internal combustion engines as electric vehicles cruise over picturesque rural roads and winding mountain passes. But what's causing this monumental change is a confluence of elements, from improvements in battery technology is lowering the cost and increasing the accessibility of electric vehicles. Growing consumer awareness of environmental issues is driving them to choose more sustainably. The demand for electric vehicles is growing, driven by people like you and me. So it's only a matter of time before we see that change. Governments around the world are also implementing policies and incentives to accelerate the transition to electric mobility, further fueling this electric revolution. Some skeptics may be wondering if we are really ready for this, and if we have enough factories and battery plants. Sai's got a point there, but the infrastructure is already in place. Not necessarily right here. Charging for nothing can save a ton of money on gasoline. Take this guy with the Chevy Bolt for instance. He's slashed his monthly travel expenses from $125 to just $9. That's some serious savings right there. But hey, we get it, change can be daunting, especially for those skeptical of climate change or suspicious of government agendas. But here's the thing, this isn't just about us. It's about the future we're building for the next generation, and trust me when I say it's the kids who are leading the charge. When you see those little ones coming up passionate about a cleaner, greener tomorrow, you realize it's not just about us anymore, it's about them. And what kind of world we're leaving in their hands. There's a lot to unpack here, and Sai's hitting the nail on the head with some game-changing insights. Now, forget about those traditional marketing strategies targeting the 35 to 55 demographic. Sid's got his sights set further ahead, thinking about where we'll be in a decade. And let's be real, he's not your typical marketing guru with an MBA, but hey, who needs fancy degrees when you've got vision? Right now, let's talk numbers right now. The Tesla controlling the market, taking a massive 70% of it, and leaving competitors like Ford far behind with only roughly 7%. But hold on, a true game changer is coming. China is not holding back when he points directly at the chart that displays a decade's worth of global electric vehicle sales. And guess what? With companies like BYD and CATL leading the charge, China is poised to shake things up big time, potentially grabbing up to 30% of the US market. But the real question is, are we ready for the influx of Chinese cars? Or will they even be able to compete? That's where things get a little tricky. You see, there's this thing called the Inflation Reduction Act with all these incentives for electric cars. But the catch is that the cars must be made in the good old USA. The batteries also need to bear the Made in USA stamp. This is an essential piece of information that cannot be overlooked. Into thin air. By 2030, all vehicle parts, components, and materials must have 100% U.S. origin value in order to be eligible for certain incentives. However, the catch is that these incentives are primarily motivated by profit. While they are tempting, it's important to keep the wider picture in mind. Gary makes a good point. Regardless of where an automobile is manufactured, people will buy it if it is desired. Additionally, the cost of electric automobiles is declining, trend making them even more alluring. But wait, what if someone says that Biden will stop allowing imports? Well, guess where GM makes its profit? The US, and the company has the numbers to prove it. Just look at Volkswagen and General Motors. Their sales in China have plummeted, and their profit margins have been cut in half. This will undoubtedly give investors more confidence, and it certainly brings out the confidence in Tesla. And who else shares our optimism about Tesla? Our friends over at Seeking Alpha. Remarkable expansion for fans of Tesla and those with a keen eye for finding the next hidden treasure in the stock market. It goes beyond simply watching from the sidelines. Your one-stop destination for the most recent information on Tesla is Seeking Alpha. Targets for Tesla stock price innovation from Tesla and everything must go on. The ideal strategy is to seek alpha. Online sources of Tesla news avoid the mainstream media's negative coverage of the company and focus only on the facts. Click the link in the description to receive a special discount. The automobile sector is undoubtedly about to undergo a significant shift, but let's quickly review before we go. Sandy presented us with some fascinating insights into the development of batteries that shed light on their power and cost-effectiveness. We also explored the complexities of global trade dynamics, paying particular attention to Chinese manufacturers and their possible influence on the US market. And lastly, we can't overlook the significance of sustainable mining methods as we navigate the demand for vital resources like lithium. This is where we hand the discussion on to you. What do you think will happen to electric cars and battery technology in the future? Do you think Tesla will succeed in the market? What other subjects would you like us to cover in future episodes? Remember to click like if you thought this conversation was informative. And for more updates, subscribe to Tesla Insights. Thank you for watching, and until next time.